Hello everyone, it's AJ, and today I would like to talk about the Bungo Stray Dogs Stormbringer play because I actually got to watch it just before it finished. So if you watched my big ass video essay the other day about Stormbringer, the light novel, you will have known that at the end I said that there's a play that you could stream until the 20th. Unfortunately, this now after the 20th, but hopefully if you watched that video you got a chance to go try and watch it. If not, maybe see some wee clips here and there. So I just want to talk about basically how well it was adapted from the light novel to the stage play. And try and look like that I actually know what I'm talking about, because funnily enough, I actually wrote about this in my fucking degree, so I should really know about adaptations. Let's see if I can use my dissertation to my advantage. Probably not. It was too long ago. But anyway, if you obviously watched the big video essay, I basically broke down the majority of what happens in Stormbringer. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go watch that. That'll give you a gist about what I'm talking about, because if you don't know the story of Stormbringer, it's going to make no sense if I say, oh, this bit was taken out and this bit was edited and etc, etc. So, I'm going to try and be more precise this time. This shouldn't be an hour and 20 minutes. But anyway, bringing to the first point. The big change from the very beginning of the story is there is no prologue. So, we do not get the first introduction to Adam Frankenstein at all. We just start off with Chuuya, which makes sense because this is a Chuuya story after all. Why would you not want to start off with your main centre character? So, obviously, people will be like, yeah, but like, it kind of has a wee bit of drama and whatnot, and it's like, but it's not entirely necessary, because the way that Adam is reintroduced after the prologue still makes a very interesting entrance. So though, yes, his first entrance is rather dramatic and whatnot, it's not entirely necessary for a stage play. And also, there's only so much that you can portray on a stage. So trying to show a plane crashing, yeah, no, they don't have time for that. So it's easier just to go straight into the story and just get on with it. Especially, like we said, Adam already makes his flashy entrance by winning the fucking pool tournament in the pool hall against the Flags and Chuuya, so it makes it fun either way. So, granted, that's not really a loss on anybody. I will say that the fact that when I was watching this, it was very obvious that the fact that whoever does the stage productions for Bungo Stray Dogs has obviously done so many, because how they worked around all the things that happen within Bungo was very clean in my opinion. So I think this is like their 7th play now, so they've done a lot and really got to the nice tweaks of like how this world works and how they can try and show off the skills and whatnot on stage. So top notch to the stage productions, yay! So basically from there, the story is basically somewhat the same. There's a few little changes here and there, mostly for narrative reasons. Because in stage plays, you generally have to have more narration, you have to have people telling you the backstory stuff or like what is just happening in general, because obviously it's a lot different when you read a book and it's like, Chuuya fought this and blah 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 blah. On a stage play, you obviously have to project that, or you have to give that background knowledge and whatnot, and like, Chuuya did this and Chuuya did that, and or here's the background knowledge. So here is Chuuya, he is 16, this is a year after this incident. You know, X, Y, and Z. So, in that regard, although he doesn't appear massively in the light novel, Mori ends up being the kind of narrator of the stage play. He kind of gives you these little tidbits and whatnot about what is happening within like the characters or just background knowledge. So, basically, they're making use of the actor. And given the fact that Mori is Chuuya's superior and obviously his boss, it kind of comes across of this is like a boss like report of the incident. So here is Mori's report about what happened during this time. With that being said, one of the times he does the narration part, actually ends up into quite a funny wee scene, but because that's later on in the play, I'll talk about that slightly later. But it ended up being one of the weirdest, funnier parts, because it diverts from the actual story for like 2 seconds. It's literally just like a wee mini little kind of comic relief moment, and then just kind of, alright, and now we're back to the story. But it's later on. So, going back, and we're obviously dealing with Chuuya, we're with the flags, and they're having their lovely fun, let's just say that. The way in which they portray the pool match is hilarious. It almost becomes like a little mini dance sequence, and they have like the extras have like pool ball hats, so they're acting as the balls. So then like all the characters are like got like their cues, and then they're like popping them, but then obviously they're moving around and going through the characters, so it's entertaining that way. Because obviously, like I said, they can't exactly bring out a full pool table, and then obviously not everyone can see the fact that there's a pool table, or they can't see what is happening with the balls. So hence why human portrayal of pool balls. Speaking of extras that add more to the scene, once Adam is introduced, he always has like two little like extras that kind of act like his brain. So see when he has his own kind of moments where he has to think about stuff, like externally, but well, internally, sorry, like working things out, like going do, basically using computer brain. He has two wee extras that basically act like it. And there's a good moment where they're in the prison bit and they're talking to Shirase, and it's the whole Adam's not allowed to tell him that Chuuya still cares for him. That's why at the time they thought that Verlaine was going after him. And there's literally like a wee mini fight, because it's like, no, I'm going to tell them, and they're like shocked, like they're like, no, you can't tell them, So just like the wee mini internal conflict is just like demonstrated. It's like the whole performance art and whatnot, but it really adds to the whole premise of like on the stage, because obviously you can't just really have Adam just be like, I really shouldn't be doing this. Well, you could, but it adds more if you just have like two little extras that just really personify like the conflict and that he's going through, and like technically now developing emotionally as a robot. It's moments like that that show what like stage plays can utilise, because obviously, especially with Bungo, there's so many things you just cannot portray on a stage. Like, for instance, you can't have Adam, like, properly bundle up a person and then run around and, like, jump and everything like that. They basically get round that at one, like, when Adam nicks Chuuya, is they have, like a doll, like, a life-size doll, and he runs really quickly around the stage, because obviously they couldn't really carry around the actual actor of Chuuya. And then afterwards, obviously, when Chuuya eventually runs away, basically they can't obviously have the actor just magically like go upside down up into the stage and just kind of sit there like, yeah. So they just basically make him hide, because that's generally what he does. He just hides. So it's like the kind of compromise of what they can actually do with the source material, but still get the same gist across about this is what actually happened in that scene. Though we don't actually see Chuuya going up into the top of the tunnel, it's still implied that he still was able to hide from Adam as he ran. So it still got to the same point, just slightly different direction, but still flows. Obviously with this part, this is where Verlaine shows and picks up Chuuya in the car, and this is where all the magic starts. So obviously this is like the proper use of like abilities and whatnot, and if you've obviously seen like the wee details that happen, like the swirlies and the wee kind of ruiny things, so they actually like project that on the stage as well, so everyone's like colour coded. So obviously when Chuuya uses his gravitational ability, it is red, and then when Verlaine uses his, it's purple. So you can actually tell who's using their abilities. Like everyone's kind of like colour coded, which is pretty snifty, and it flows really nicely. Like obviously they practice like a million times. So obviously the people that are like dealing with the lights to actually put these across the stage and project them onto the stage, obviously know what they're doing, know where the actors are going to be, they work around it kind of thing. But just that slight little detail obviously just adds to the experience, because when you go into the play, you generally have a gist of what these characters are like, and you know what they can do. So, obviously, things magically can't fly and whatnot. So, you have to obviously give a wee bit of leniency when it comes to stage plays, especially when there's like supernatural, like fantastical things. But they do a good job that you know that something's happening to the group. Like, people obviously kind of fly, obviously they like act out of it, like they're getting thrown, or obviously there's like the wee wires for when they can technically slightly levitate in the air. We do have those. That's the only kind of thing that is in the play, where like the actors get strapped in and then they kind of go wee. Or in case of like Chuuya and Verlin, like they kind of just levitate. They have those moments. It's not all useless. What I loved about the stage is at the very top there is a set of stairs, so you can actually go onto the stage and it hits you to the top, but you don't see the back of the stairs. But people can just like jump off that. So it's like they've been hit and whatnot, and then they just disappear, and it's kind of like, ah! It's really silly about how much I really enjoyed that. We see when like Adam was like jumping off or whatnot. It's just, or anyone was just falling behind there. It's just like, Even when people were just walking up and just appearing, it was just like, it was very majestic. Just like, yes, look at me at top stage. So with the mixture of obviously the light design and the sound design, obviously using that to immerse you in the situation, keeps you on track for the story. So for the most part from there, the story is still pretty linear. How they meet up with Shirase is a wee bit just altered. Like, you don't have the beginning part of chapter 2 where you're seeing it through Adam's perspective, and he's going through the town and he's picking up all the sweets and chewing gum, but he still doesn't know how to fucking eat. So that bit was basically just like junked. Like, literally there's a moment, it's like Chuuya's with Mori just tells him to go, and then that's it. There isn't really a funeral scene. So, but it's just cutting out the things just to kind of keep it moving, because there isn't really proper breaks in the play. So it's more streamlined that way, because it's a continuous motion. So it keeps everything moving in the stage correctly. So that part is obviously different, but it's not entirely missed in the cohesive of the play. If it would be maybe a wee bit different if it was like a film or like an anime or whatnot, where if you had that little funeral scene, it obviously adds a wee bit of development for like both characters of like Chuuya and Adam, because obviously Adam being a wee bit clueless about this is a funeral, but obviously still trying to push. But then obviously you see Chuuya's heart, just like obviously he wants to mourn and whatnot. So, but it's hard to convey those emotions on a play correctly unless you do have that time to like really flush it out. And like I said, this play was 2 hours and 20 minutes. So they did streamline this the best they could. It just shows you that even though they cut out bits, it was still a long ass play. And I would personally say there wasn't really much filler, like to try and extend it or elongate any scenes and whatnot. If anything, they were pretty much trying to like cut it down to, this is the main point of this scene, this is the main point of this scene. So like I said, with the funeral, they just go boom, bye. Let's just get straight on to the point of, we need to go after Shirase, and basically he just goes, nah. We have an extra with a vase. That's like my favourite thing. Literally the scene starts and there's just an extra just holding the vase. And then Shirase's obviously just throws it at Chuuya, and then the extra with the vase just goes, and then just magically disappears with it. Oh, so it's silly touches like that I still like, because obviously it keeps the play clean, because then they don't need to worry about the fact there's a prop on the floor if the prop is represented by a person, so they just pretend to be the thing, and then they can just calmly remove it again, and then they don't need to worry about any actors getting hurt. Especially when they try and imitate a chase scene. And see Adam's actor, man, I feel so bad for him. He had to run with like high knees. Like, my god, that was a lot of exercise. Like, bless him, but wow. But it makes sense. See, when I saw him run, I'm like, yeah, that is definitely the way that Adam runs. Which then leads us to like the prison scene and like at the police station, and even that is just like zoomed, like super cut short. Like literally, they get into the room and then literally Adam's already kicked out the room. Like it's literally like 2 seconds they're together, and then it's like a case of, right, you go and get that sorted. But the wee moment that Chuuya tries to like give hand signals to Adam to go get Shirase out the jail cell, and it's just emphasised by the sound. It's just going it's just perfect. But it just shows obviously how much they can just go zonk to scenes. They just get straight to the point within that chapter. It's like they hit the police station, they split up, they get Shirase, Adam talks to him for like 2 seconds to convince him to get the fuck out. Basically just telling, hey, I'm not meant to tell you this, I don't give a shit about you, but Chuuya cares about you, so you should listen to us. And then Shirase just goes, oh, cool. Like, there's not really much of a proper, like, backlash as it is if you read the light novel. Like, they literally just get straight down to the point. Then it goes back to Chuuya with a detective, and it's like, their conversation is literally like 2 seconds of that whole menial thing, but like, oh yes, my brother got me a job as a security officer and whatnot. And then tries to offer him, hey, if you sign this deal, if you rat out your job essentially as part of the Port Mafia, you and Shirase can go. And then that's where Villain appears, obviously. And then the wee mini fights. Even just like showing how Verlaine shoves Adam into the wall was just like, right, so we're gonna have this different kind of lighting just to show he's a wee bitty contorted. Then we get the fight sequence with Chuuya and Verlaine at the police station, which then results in the detective dying. So that is still basically the gist, and it still falls through. Yatta. Obviously, the death feels a lot more dramatic, because it's like, here, center stage, we have the guy, he dies, Chuuya's giving his speech at him, and then they find the phone. Very dramatic. Which then leads us into what happens for chapter 3. And then how they executed N talking through Adam was funny. I wonder how many times like Adam's actor had to like practice, because I'm assuming that the voiceover for N is just pre-recorded. I would maybe assume it was pre-recorded, so that it would technically make things easier. And obviously he talks with his own voice, and then he has to like mouth to N's voice. From there isn't many changes until they get to the clone tank, although I will highlight when they try and do the blood tests when they go into the facility. Like the extras when they go up to Adam literally have so many needles in their hands, because obviously with his skin doesn't work, and they're literally just going beep, nope. And then all you hear is this ding. Literally just to show that the needles are breaking. And it's just like the silliest little funny details that just make this play. So they're just literally just like, nope, nope, nope. Oh, but yeah, so we get to the tank, and this change is obviously very obvious about why this happened. So if you watched the big essay, You'll know how much I was mind blown by this fucking skeleton. And lo and behold, there is no skeleton, because obviously you can't magically produce a skeleton for a stage play. Shock. So that's obviously one of the major kind of bigger changes for the play, the fact that you can't actually have a skeleton. But they basically have a duplicate actor that looks like Chuuya. So that part is still correct in the fact that basically Chuuya is still fighting himself. So when it comes to the point of like later on when they meet again, like fighting after Chuuya broke out after the torture and whatnot, like it's obviously still the Chuuya that looks like a person rather than like a skeleton. So obviously we have that little change. Dazai does appear as well. I've just realised I've not really talked about the fact that Dazai does appear. And one of the times he appears, I swear it must be in the contract for any actor that plays Dazai on the stage needs to be able to do those wee wiggly arm things. Because this is like the moment where I was telling you that Mori kind of becomes the narrator and whatnot. So there's a moment where Mori and Dazai are just somewhat chilling together. So Mori's obviously explaining things about how things are going. And then they just kind of start dancing and doing, it was like, oh, Dazai's like song. And then Dazai's just pure like this. It was a very weird moment, but it was a nice, light, humorous moment, but it was very confusing about why it just magically appeared. And then literally, Mori just fucks off right afterwards, just like, I'm off. Let's just continue this story. Like, okay, so it's meant to be like a semi-serious scene, and it's just like, you know what? Nah, let's just have Dazai dance. Oh, even though for the most part when Dazai appears, he's like either just taking the piss right out of Chuuya, he's like talking to Verlaine and giving him the details and just like, you should have died. It's like, yeah, but I didn't. But there you go. And then obviously when he appears later on, when he bumps into Adam, it was just like, does that whole, I know what you're thinking kind of thing. That's fun for the stage, obviously. Like I said, most of the story is still correct and like cohesive that way. Just that little segment was just odd. Because even though there's like little mini dancey moments, like it's to represent like things that actually happened in the book. Hence like the pool ball scene. Like, yeah, that still happened in the book. They still had a pool tournament. There is no moment in the light novel where it's like, oh yeah, so Dazai and Mori have a fucking dance. Yeah. A moment that I appreciated that they did in the stage like really well was how they did the train scene. So how the real Mori went into the train and whatnot, and then obviously we had Hirutsu as like the fake. And I just liked how they did that on the stage. But I also thought it was hilarious that like Hirutsu didn't have like dark hair or anything like that. I don't know why. I was expecting it, like, you know that Wan's like story, like that wee episode where they're all having like a fake Mori off kind of thing. I was expecting the wig, and I don't know why I had that in my head. It was like when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, it'll be like that moment at Wan. And I just remembered he won that. Anyway, in terms of obviously portraying how the story went, it's obviously hard to show all these abilities and whatnot, like see what happens in the forest. So there isn't any like extras that come out. You're just basically focused on Verlaine as he's getting attacked. So this is where the light and sound really just like shine, because they're just trying to show it's like, hey, they're being attacked by bullets. It's like the land's kind of changing, so they make like the stage look kind of wobbly and whatnot. And then there's also just like the narration going around. It's like, so now we have this skill user and this skill user and this is happening and that is happening, because there is nowhere else you can portray it in a stage play. So you literally just have it told to you. And then they think that they've won and whatnot. And it's just when Adam comes up with the finger, see when he like injects people. It's been so good in this play because he just has it like he's like a fucking finger gun, right? And people just turn to it perfectly just to activate it. Like that is how it happened like the whole like play. And I loved that teeny little detail. It's like whenever he used his finger to like inject poison or like anything he needed to just like to knock people out, it was just like, wait, what? Boom. But because he's already just having it there, and it's like, would you like to hear a joke? What? Boom. Subtle differences. You couldn't really get away with that in like a film. You could, but it would make it too cheesy. That's the good thing about plays. You can get away with like extra cheese because there's so much you can't show. So this actually just like brings it out more. It's like just elevates the story. Just like those little subtle things. It's like, here's like a motif to go through the whole place. And the fact that if Adam uses his finger, it's already there and everyone turns into it. Like, small details. Mwah. It should be said, obviously, that they can't really show like proper brutalization against corruption, obviously. But they have like a really intense like choreographed scene with the effects of the lights, like showing the fact this is Chuuya's corruption, this is Verlaine's brutalization, just clashing against each other and like neutralizing each other and whatnot. So using each other like that to make up for the fact that they obviously can't go very big and dramatic because there's only so much you can do on a stage. Because if you were like to make big costumes or whatnot, or like so that, how do you get that off the stage? How do you do stuff like that? They're cohesive with the story, like basically to the very end, because even after the battle it's just like, and there we go, we've won, and then it just like moves into like what happened afterwards. And even just like the fact with the scene where Chuuya meets Shirase at the pier because he's going off to England, they just go straight through that like smoothly. So it's like, here's a little bit of backstory, here's what's going to happen, but we're not going to really focus on it too much because we don't want to draw it out. So it's like, you're going, you're late, wait, you smell of incense, because Chuuya's been up at the graves basically setting flowers for the flags. And then once he basically goes, right, we're cool, off you go, bye, and then Dazai appears to then meet the like officials from England and France and whatnot, and it's where we meet Frankenstein's creator, Dr. Mary Shelley, and she was so bubbly, it was great. Just her appearance, like, hi! It was just like, yes. Awesome. There's literally like they have like the extras being like the bodyguards and the extra doctors and whatnot, and there's like a guy that's like hunched over and everything, and then they're like, you must be like doctor, and it's like, no, I am. And then when she has a wee mini rant, it's like, I didn't want this to be used for this project. And then it's like the other one's just going like back, like going back down the line and being like, and then the guy who's at the end just going, oh shit. It's like passing the blame on, and can't do that. But it's not like made like a proper like element of, it's not like major to the scene, but it's just like a wee bit off the corner, and it's just like it just adds to it. So it's like background, just like extra details and whatnot, just to kind of lighten up the scene as they talk about it. It's like, yes, Adam is my best creation, blah 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 blah, here we go, let's just remake him again and he'll appear at the top of the stairs, yay! And then it's all happy tickety boo. And then as that's happening, Mori's coming back out and being like, but this time he's talking to Hiritsu, because in the light novel he's talking to Koyo, and obviously basically goes, that was a horrible month with all these officials, blah 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 blah. And it's like, did they find out about Verlaine? And basically Hiritsu's goes like, nope, nobody's been in and out. And it's like, perfect, which then swiftly moves us into that scene. So slight change of details, but it makes sense, because why would you bring on an actress for 2 seconds to play Koyo, who hasn't appeared for the rest of the whole story, whereas at least there's somebody that appeared as Harutsu for like a tiny little chunk, had lines and done stuff. Makes sense. It's like these little changes that they have to do, because obviously in a play you're like limited to the staff that you can have, and if you can make up all the people, then fine, but if you don't have a very tall lassie that can be Koyo, well, there's no point bringing that character for 2 seconds where it's literally just a case of, yes, nobody's been in and out, and that is that. You might as well just utilise an actor if it's already there to play a different character. But it still would make sense, because they're still part of the Mafia, and they're still like highly regarded. Which then moves us on to the Rembrandt and Verlaine scene, where obviously through Rembrandt, Verlaine comes back to life, and then they have these extras that basically act like the skill that like press upon like Verlaine's heart to like get it going again so that he's alive. We don't actually see an actor for Rembrandt, because basically it's obviously he's like, I'm a ghost, so it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't see him. So they just utilise the voiceovers, which is obviously perfect in this case, because it's like, well, he's meant to be kind of like a ghost. Generally, you don't see ghosts. You can hear them and whatnot. So they don't need to worry about that. And it also just kind of centres on Verlaine as well as a character. It kind of gives him his kind of spotlight. Like, even in the epilogue, you have Hikachi and Atagawa, but Atagawa is voiced in the play, but he's like off stage, so you don't see him. And basically Chuuya just kind of reacts that way to him and like responds to him. But you still have that scene where he's watching his parents, and then he's like talking to Mori, but then obviously Mori is responding to him as well, like overhead. And right up at the very end, you even get him going off in the bike that used to belong to one of the members of the Flags, like albatrosses, and you actually get to see the bike go off the stage. Obviously it's like on a wee pulley rig kind of situation. I'd be very impressed if they actually got the actor to ride the bike on stage. I'd be very impressed, but I'm pretty sure it was just like a rigged pulley system. But yeah, and then you kind of get like there's somewhat of a curtain call, but they're still like very much in character, and then they have like a wee kind of dancey session, and there's another Grand Rodeo song which gets used for it, which is, if you don't know, one of the vocalists is Chuuya's voice actor for the anime, like Japanese. So that in itself is just pretty fucking cool. So I liked that wee touch. That was great. Getting like the rights to have like them create a song for this, because it's a Chuuya centered story, is top notch. That's good production, man. Utilising like everything that goes in this like Bungo fandom. But yeah, and then there's even one little tiny epilogue in the actual play, and it's Dazai going after Verlaine, being like, hey, can you kill me now? Just the way to lighten it off. And then we get our last shot of Chuuya going off. Yay! And there we go. 2 hours and 20 minutes later, there is the play. And wow. I loved watching every minute of that. It was the first time I got to see one of the plays from like start to finish, because I've only seen like clips like here and there. So see, to actually be able to sit down and like watch it all was like epic. And for such a story as well, like it was a good entertaining story. Like, even though, like I said, there's lots of changes that happen when you have to adapt for a stage. So obviously the prologue was completely cut. Obviously certain characters didn't appear because there's only so much casting you can do. It's in a very limited story. And then obviously you can't like show off certain things. Like, especially like the skeleton, you can't bring out a fucking skeleton like that. But I will say, for what they had with their source material and what they projected onto the stage was frankly fantastic. Like, see if they even just adapted what had happened on the stage. So everything they took and put on the stage, and if they adapted that into like a long form media form, like on TV or like film and whatnot, it would still be a very solid adaptation. The stage play shows that you could actually get away with not having the prologue that's part of the light novel, but still have a good impact for when that character appears, because basically they have two solid intros. Like, Adam just has brilliant intros when he appears. He just lights up the room. So the stage play is a good solid base for like what they could do to adapt that bloody thick ass light novel that is just a novel at this point. There's no point calling it a light novel. So let me know down below if, first of all, did you actually get to watch it yourself? And what are your wee thoughts? And how do you want Stormbringer to be brought to the screen? Like, do you want it through the anime? Do you want it through a movie? Like, I am still also really hoping for a manga version as well, and frankly, I would think it would be epic if it was the person that's been doing Beast and now to be doing 15 years. Mostly because they seem really hyped over Stormbringer as well. Like, if you looked through their Twitter, like, they were talking about the plane and whatnot. So I feel like they would obviously love to do the story, and I felt like they would do it so much justice. But obviously, I would be happy if it just gets done by any artist, being honest. If it's nice and adapted well, I think all of us would be happy. So, yeah. Good times. So, anyway, until next time, I'm AJ, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.